You've got to put faith in the middle of this process, or the process just won't work. There needs to come a time, and we need to get good at this. We need to practice it. And you know, there are people that have never prayed a prayer of faith. I'm convinced that there are Christians that have never prayed the prayer of faith the way Jesus instructed us to pray. They pray a prayer of desperation, of course. Help, God, help, I'm going down, or help, you know, like Peter said when he was sinking on the, help, Lord, save me, I'm drowning. They pray a prayer of desperation, or they pray a prayer of hope, or they pray a prayer of intense desire. But those are not the things that make prayer work. James said it. He said, except let not that man who doesn't pray in faith. It says, let him ask in faith. If you're going to pray for wisdom, ask in faith. Let not that man that wavers believe that he'll receive anything from God. It's the prayer of faith that receives from God, not the prayer of feeling. Now, I'm not opposed to feeling God. I love an anointed service. I love to feel the anointing. I love, I lay hands on people in real services. I'll lay hands on people. It's hard to do that virtually, You really can't do it virtually. That's the one thing you can't really do through a camera, is lay hands on people. But we do that in real services. And it's powerful. You can literally feel the power of God. It feels like electricity. I've laid hands on people before, and the power's been so strong it literally burned my arm. And that's happened many times. There's been times I've laid hands on people and it was so powerful it knocked me in the floor. And so that's the power, the manifested power of God. There's nothing like that. I love that. But to think that you need to feel that every single time you pray in order to have a successful prayer encounter is foolishness. Our faith is not in feelings, and I don't care how much and how much you like to feel God and how good it feels when you feel God. The prayer of faith is based on faith in the Word. It can be unemotional. It can be totally dry and dull. It can be as dull as a business transaction. Faith does not have to be felt. Faith does not have to be seen. In fact, that's the very anti-definition of faith. Feeling and seeing, once you get to that point, you don't need faith. So faith is the substance of things hoped for. It's the evidence of things not seen. It says in 2 Corinthians 4:18, while we do not look at things which are seen. What did Thomas say? Until I see and until I feel, I will not believe. Well, we're instructed to look at things which are not seen, but at things which, to not look at things which are seen, but at things which are not seen. For the things which are seen are temporary, but the things which are not seen are eternal. That's just another way of saying the blessings and promises of God that you want and need in your life can't be perceived by your senses. They exist in a spirit world. And to access those things, we do it by faith, faith from the heart. And faith believes when it cannot see. The reason Jesus had a problem with Thomas is not because he was logical and reasonable. Thomas was a good man. He was chosen to be one of the disciples. The reason that Jesus had a problem with him and uses him as an example of unbelief is because Thomas could have believed. He could have taken the absolute opposite position. And when they told him, we've seen the Lord, he could have said, well, you know what? He said he was going to be raised from the dead. And if you saw him and you're telling me it happened, I believe it happened. He could have done that. Just like you and I can believe the promises of God. You can believe if God said, my God shall supply all your needs according to His riches and glory, you can believe that. If God says we overcome by the blood of the Lamb, the word of our testimony, you can believe that you're an overcomer. If the Word says, greater is He that's in you than he that's in the world, you can believe that you're going to experience victory in any situation. You can believe that. You say, well, I've never experienced anything but loss. That's what you see. That's what you feel. That's not what you have to believe. You are not obligated, forced, made to believe anything. You know, no matter what happens in any government in the world, no matter how restrictive they get, they cannot tell us what to believe. They cannot force us to believe one thing above another. That is totally up to us. Thomas chose not to believe. He chose to be rational. How many times do we do that? Thomas chose not to get his hopes up. Thomas chose to play it safe. Thomas chose to hedge on his bets. He said, you know, you guys, you're all caught up in this thing. I understand that. You want to believe it, I know that. But I'm a realist, and I'm not going to go there until I can see and feel. You know what that'll do for you? That will rob you of the blessings of God. That will keep you from accessing these unseen, invisible things. You will never be able to look at things which are not seen by operating like that. And that's one thing that people have against the faith message. They say, you faith people, you get people's hopes all built up and then they're disappointed. Well, I'm not trying to get their hopes built up. I want to get their faith built up. When you believe God, you receive from God. And there's really no other way to do that. I'm sorry. You can't go buy the blessings of God. And you can't earn the blessings of God. And you can't work hard enough and do enough right things to earn what Jesus has freely provided. But you can learn how to believe, choose to believe, and you can receive and continue to receive the blessings of God throughout your life. And you know, God's the one that chose this method. I didn't choose it. God did. So I want to show you this. Go back to John chapter 20, and we're going to spend a couple sessions on this, so I'm not going to have to rush through it. But in verse 24, now Thomas, called the twin, one of the 12, was not with them when Jesus came. So the other disciples said to him, we have seen the Lord. You know, Thomas would have been so much better off if he'd have just said, okay, and just kept it at that. But man, he just piped up and said what he believed. He showed what his true belief was. He said, unless I see in his hands the print of the nails and put my finger into the print, I will not believe. Man, that's just rude, isn't it? Here are these people, they're all excited and they're telling Thomas he's alive. And Thomas says, you know, he didn't just say, okay, you know, believe what you want. He said, I don't believe it. I'm not going to believe it. And here are my standards. And you know what? He just made that up. Who says you have to see the nail prints? I think a vision of the resurrected Christ in all of his glory is plenty. Do you really have to put your hand in his side? Do you really have to see the nail prints in his hand? I mean, where did he come up with all these rules? People are so particular. He should have just, you know, let it go. Now, I looked this up, and Jesus told them before this moment 3 different times that we have record of that he would die and be raised from the dead. I'm not going to take time to read these 3. Well, maybe let me read one of them to you. Matthew 16 verse 21. He did this 3 different times. From that time, Jesus began to show his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem, suffer many things from the elders and chief priests and scribes, and be killed and be raised the 3rd day. He said it again in Matthew 17:22. He said it again in Matthew 20:17. That's 3 that we have record of. And here it says, he began to show them. So he made it clear to them that he was going to die and be raised the 3rd day. First of all, they were shocked when he died. They couldn't believe that he died. They couldn't believe it. They thought, this is the Messiah. This is the Son. How could he die? Surely he didn't die. They couldn't believe it. And then when they finally realized he died, they couldn't believe that he was alive again, even though he had told them over and over again that this was what's going to happen. You know, the same thing happens today. You can preach and preach and preach the word, and people just won't believe it. I'm telling you, all you got to do is just reverse it and say, I'm going to believe it. I'm going to believe it. I'm going to be one of those that hears about the resurrection and says, well, that's what he said. He said he would. I believe he did. Thank you for watching today. Hope you enjoyed the things you saw. And don't forget to like and subscribe and ring the bell.
Visit gregfritz.org to download the MP3s and watch the streaming video for free by entering code FREE at checkout.